and good afternoon. Patrick Kirkwood, CEO of the BioSport. I'd like to welcome a very special guest sitting with me right here, the internationally renowned volleyball legend, Olympian. How's that for an introduction?
Yeah,
Does that
perfect,
cover it all? Or,
yeah.
Or just average everyday guy?
Yeah, just getting there. I'm just a guy, just a Canadian.
Just a GQ guy that happened to play volleyball and brought home some medals. Let's talk about that a little bit. Bronze medal, what did you achieve?
Yeah, so there's lots of things. I mean, when I first joined the national team, we would have been around like 20th in the world, approximately. And then from there, a few years later, we qualified for the Rio Olympics. It had been a couple decades since Canada had been in there. We lost both times, unfortunately, in the Olympics in the quarterfinals to Russia, both times.
Right.
But we did end up winning the very first Nations League bronze medal for Canada.
Wow.
We won the first gold medal in Norseca, so that's kind of like our kind of subsect of the world. And so it was, we made some cool breakthroughs. It was pretty fun.
That's huge. It doesn't matter, it doesn't matter who you are, what you do. Just anytime you hear the word, whether it's bronze, silver, or gold, that's elite. That's as good as it gets in everybody's book. So, hey, great. Listen, I appreciate you coming here to our downtown office, and we're going to talk about some other things. I have a few questions that have been suggested that I ask to you by some other members and such, so I actually had them written down here. First thing, and we're going to focus on the BioSport. Since we met, I've introduced you to the BioSport program, personalized, an AI-powered personalized training program that speaks to your own DNA, what's going on inside. We also talk about your microbiome, your gut, and we send it through our sequencer and our software, and it gives us a report that tells us all about what's going on. And we look to 15,000, a minimum of 15,000 variants based on sports, sports genomics. So I'm going to start out with the first question. You've competed at the highest level in the world. Looking back, what role did understanding your body and optimizing recovery play in your success?
Yeah, I mean, it's huge because, so for us in the volleyball world, it's a 12-month season.
Yeah.
Like we go play internationally overseas for usually about 7-8 months, and then we come back and we compete for our national team the whole time. And you might not think of it this way, but volleyball is a really high-impact sport because you're jumping constantly. So I remember it would have been the first or second year that I was kind of full-time with our senior team. And it was, I think, 7 weeks straight. Every weekend we were in a new continent. So we went from like Finland to Australia to Brazil to Chicago to every weekend, and you have to perform all the time. And so constantly your body's put under a lot of stress. And it's funny because a lot of times as an athlete, I mean, when you're young, you're kind of like, oh, I'm invincible, nothing's going to happen, I'm great. And then you kind of feel that wear and tear over time. And I've seen it happen with every single athlete. You start to have to dive in more into, okay, what's actually happening? Why do both of my knees hurt all the time? Why is my back starting to bother me? Is my shoulder injured or is it just sore? What's really happening? And then for me personally, I was really fortunate with injuries. I didn't have a lot of injuries until the very end where I had a back injury that basically ended my career. Right, and that kind of came out of the blue, and I had to start wrestling with what is going on in my body, how can I manage it. I ended up competing at my final Olympics with the back brace and being quite immobilized. So your body becomes, it's your number one resource, right? It's the only thing that you can do to complete your sport, right, and to actually go and compete out there. So it's huge to start understanding what you do and how you do it, and also what's optimal. I mean, I'm a volleyball player, but I'm not a huge guy. There's some guys on the team that are 7 feet tall.
Yeah.
So they jump, maybe 100 times, but I jump 200 times. Okay, we need something individualized for each of us, right? Especially with the different demands of our roles. So understanding your body it's almost a requirement. If you're a professional athlete, that's top priority.
Yeah, well, that's a great answer, and the travel alone, you've got to be an athlete just to travel.
Yeah, exactly.
These days,
Exactly.
It's an incredible journey. That being said, I guess one of my questions would be, you had the injuries, and you've had the ups and downs, and from what you know about the BioSport program that we've spoken about so far, how do you think having that program back when you were doing your training, how do you think that might have changed your career?
Yeah, I mean, probably the biggest thing is, as an athlete, you want to remove as many unknowns as possible. And for myself, so my back injury being kind of what ended my career, obviously that it had to do with my vertebrae and the bone. Understanding bone density, understanding what can maybe support that, could have in some ways supported, whether it be my recovery to the injury or even it was a chronic injury. So understanding what I could have done kind of in that period before. But it's interesting, like every athlete, anybody who's ever been a professional athlete knows that you are battling things all the time.
Yeah.
So constantly I roll my ankle and I'm managing that, and my knees are starting to bug me, and we're traveling, my back's bothering me, my shoulder's bothering me. And you're trying to get as much information as you can as possible, right? You're doing your own research. We've got a team with the national team, with your pro teams, but taking responsibility in that recovery is important, right? Like, I want to continue to understand what's actually happening and how can I support it, right? And again, the challenging thing with a team sport is everyone is going to be very unique within that, right? So we're trying to figure out, what do I need versus another guy who's maybe a lot more physical and bigger and all that, versus another guy who maybe doesn't play as much, but when he does come in has to be sharp. There's going to be some unique angles to that. So for me, it would have been especially understanding, the mechanics and kind of support of what was going on with my back, but also all the injuries along the way, right? If we can kind of map out how we experience our sport, it's obviously a lot easier, right? It's really removing those unknowns.
Yeah, again, another great answer, and I think that's really what the BioSport program is all about. It's about personalized training. Your DNA, my DNA, we're different. I think what's been happening for a long time, we're moving in the right direction, but what's been happening for a long time is it's been a one-size-fits-all training program. And, if you've got some of these, maybe you're predisposed to that type of injury, we have the ability to help train a little better and a little differently, and I think that's really what it's all about. Let me go to another one of the questions here. Were there moments in your career where you felt that you could have benefited from more personalized data or guidance about your body? Maybe a repeat of what we just said, but just briefly, if you want to answer that one.
Yeah, I mean, probably earlier in my career. Like, I think as you get older, playing for a national team for about a decade and playing overseas for a long time, you're constantly compiling information. How do I feel? How can I recover? What's making me feel? All that sort of stuff. But I'm kind of doing that on my own, right? I'm not looking at a test and saying, oh, this is the most perfectly instrumented system for me. I'm kind of figuring out, okay, every time I eat this, or every time I train this, it seems to bother this area. So it's more kind of empirical. But having actual information, especially early on, because that transition of going from you're a collegiate athlete, where you're a high performer, to you're now a professional athlete, where some pro teams you go to, I mean, you're being hired to win.
Yeah.
You're not being hired for them to help take care of you. You're not being hired for these other things. So if you don't win, you're not doing your job.
Yeah.
Right? So then it kind of comes back to you to try and solve those problems. So in that early stage of me moving from a collegiate athlete to a professional athlete, it takes a minute to learn what can actually function with your body. And so understanding that at that moment probably would have been really crucial. And for myself, I was small growing up, and I went into...
You don't look that small.
And that's right. And I went into volleyball and basketball and other sports, but I needed to find other advantages. There's a lot of guys I'd play against who were 6'9" in 12th grade. It's tough to compete with that, so I kind of had to figure out my own way.
Yeah, and again, that's really what we're all about. We're trying to help your disadvantages, and what can we do to make it better. That's amazing. Let's talk a little bit about what are you doing right now, and then I'll end with, I've got one more question here. I think that let me ask you this question first, and then we'll go back to the volleyball is demanding on all joints, reflexes, endurance. What kind of injuries did you have to overcome, and how might tools like the BioSport have helped you?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I've done both my ankles several times. Just naturally in volleyball, you're landing on people all the time. It's unfortunate, but you break them, you sprain them, all that sort of stuff. That's a little bit more acute, but if you think of chronic, I mean, almost all volleyball players, especially maybe later on in their career, are going to start to notice their knees start to deteriorate. It's just a big part of it. If you're a spiker, your shoulder's going to start to go. It's funny, so I was a setter, so I wasn't swinging that much, but I was still pretty aggressive from the service line.
Can you show us?
Like that. Like it looks exactly like that. I don't want to, show them up. No, it's beautiful.
You don't want to get any trade secrets. Exactly. I get it. Okay.
But my shoulder, it's funny, even now, I've joked with a few of my my current clients, like my shoulder still hurts a lot,
Yeah.
right? And I didn't have the same demand
Is that
as
rotator
a lot of
cuff,
those.
do you think, or-
It's kind of everything.
Yeah.
It creates a lot of imbalances, right? When you're so unilateral, rotating one way and all that sort of stuff. And then your body's a chain, right? So then all these different chains act up, and everything can kind of be a part of it. And then finally, the back. A lot of people, due to extension, due to rotation, due to landing so many times, you end up with a lot of back injuries. So a lot of joint stuff, but also a lot of kind of bone stuff, right? Like your vertebrae, different areas of obviously cartilage and stuff like that in your knee, but it's pretty consistent. And myself, I've had knee problems, shoulder problems, ankle problems. I mean, if you play long enough, you're going to have kind of every problem.
Yeah.
But I really only had one big, capital P problem, which was my back, which ended up kind of ending everything.
Yeah. And I just finished talking with Hall of Famer Grant Fuhrer and Hall of Famer TJ, that's you, Nick Lewis, sorry, talking with him, and they both actually said exactly the same thing. A big part of the problem in the sports when you get to the elite level is that folks are coming to the court or the field or the rink, and they're just going way too hard in the beginning, and that's when the injuries start. And not warmed up properly, that sort of thing, right? And that's, I guess, a whole part of your training program too, right?
Well, it's interesting because as an athlete, we end up being trained to push ourselves.
Yes.
Like that's a skill that we develop, and we want our athletes to develop that. We want them to be able to push themselves, and it actually becomes really difficult to manage. When should I keep pushing? When shouldn't I? Right? Like even with my injury when I wanted to come back and play, and okay, how much should I play? What should that look like?
And so I'm going to interrupt you.
Yeah.
That's a big part of exactly what we do with BioSport,
Yeah.
right? We're trying to help you to realize and recognize that you're about to overtrain, or maybe you're undertraining, right? Would that have helped a lot?
100%.
Yeah.
And especially, changing from you're with the national team to a pro team to this, and you're bouncing back and forth, that creates a lot of inconsistencies, right? Like obviously my pro team wants the best for me, but our national team has to get that information to the pro team, get that information back, right? There's a lot of dynamics at play, and a lot of that can get lost. So if you can take more personal responsibility in that, you're going to have an advantage for sure.
Yeah, fantastic. Listen, let's shift gears a little bit here, and let's talk about what are you doing right now? Question number one. Question number two, let's talk a little bit about the youth. And I know that probably is part of what you're doing right now. And where do you see sport and training with the youth? Where do you see that going? And how do you maybe see us getting together and collaborating?
Yeah, it's a good question. So what I'm doing now is a bunch of different things. So I post-Tokyo Olympics, I lived up in the Arctic for a couple years and was running a psychosport program up there. So that was super fun, getting to engage with a lot of young athletes, trying to support them in different ways. While I was up there, I ended up launching a couple other kind of avenues with, again, supporting the youth and different athletes. And now I would say I've got a position-specific kind of business where I work with centers, which is a position I played. I've got a coaching-specific business.
Show you again?
We're going to work on it. We're working on it. Yeah, that's why he's going to join the program. That's I work with a bunch of coaches. I also have a platform, a community called Elite Resilience, which is all about nervous system development and understanding how your nervous system can connect to high performance. Basically, how is your physiology impacting your mental performance? And then I also will be the offensive coordinator for a very large club in Istanbul, starting in September. Yeah.
Well, are you moving to Istanbul? Or
Yeah, I'll be there for probably about 6 months. Yeah, 7 months.
That's kind of, we're doing some things out in that area too. So
Awesome.
Who knows? Right?
Yeah, there we go. Part 2 in Istanbul.
We'll record this.
Yeah.
That'll be a hot one.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And what about I guess just to end on the youth and charities and that sort of thing, and while we're talking, all the people out there that are listening to us. I think they're very interested in what you're having to say, but any messaging or anything that you want to talk about, like?
Yeah, to your point about the youth, it's really interesting because when I was growing up, I played in the parking lot, I played pickup basketball, I played, right?
Yeah.
Like you're young and you're just kind of enjoying it all. Where now, and you see this in volleyball, but you see it in a lot of sports, specialization starts really young.
Yeah.
And then again, you look at a sport like volleyball where it's really chronic. If you do that over a long period of time, more injuries are often going to sprout from that. So whether it be changing your training or understanding those potential injuries or modifications you need to make is obviously going to be super important. But I think for young athletes, I mean, when I look back in my career, there's so many ups and downs. Yeah. You're going to lose a lot of games. You're going to win a lot of games. That's all kind of a part of it. And with a lot of the younger athletes that I work with, I try and focus or emphasize on having a big picture, right? Okay, maybe you went and you lost this game and that's devastating, or you didn't make this team, or you made this team, or whatever it is. That's one moment in a really long chronological
journey.
Order. Exactly, of your journey. Yeah. And all we can do is try and learn from that. Yeah. Whatever it is. If it was a good thing, okay, awesome. What allowed you to do that? What sacrifices did you make? What did you bring up in your performance? If it's not a great thing, okay, what was the difference between you and the next person or the other team? And once you start taking that kind of bigger picture approach, you can start seeing things a little bit more clearly. Because obviously, in a moment when things aren't going great, we have a response, right? And it's not comfortable, right? But if we can start navigating that, it's easier to kind of move the needle slowly over a long period of time. I'd way rather that than have one moment where I could move it extremely. Right?
Yeah. Hey, listen, that's amazing. I know you got to run, and I appreciate you spending the time here with us. And I'd like to do it. Let's have a part 2, whether that's in Istanbul or wherever it is. And we got some business to chat about. But once again, thank you very much, TJ Sanders, internationally renowned volleyball Olympian, 2-time medal winner, an amazing, and a gentleman too. Just, let me add that.
There we go.
Anyways, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
And
BioSport
is very happy to have you in the house. Okay,
thank you, Patrick.
Okay.
Thank you.